This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bornini, and these are your headlines. A national disaster as a ferry sinks, killing many school children. Mass arrests occur in Sihanoukville. And there is a new craze in selfies that may well get you killed. But first, our main story. A tragic ferry disaster saw 11 school children die after a ferry sunk in Kandal province. The accident has shocked the nation when a short boat trip to take students from school back to their homes turned into a disaster. And when they discovered how old some of the crew members were, sadness mutated into anger.
Rescue efforts were launched as soon as the alarm was raised, including not only authorities but many local fishermen rushing to the scene. There was little early success, and rescuers had to search the river all night long by lamplight, scouring the water, desperate to spot a child that could be saved. But as the hours passed, the news only ever grew worse, parents being notified of yet another horrific find. The tragedy is compounded by the ages of those that perished. All those that died range from the age of 12 to 14 years, and only 4 people have confirmed to have survived the incident. 2 of them are boat crew and 2 are children. The accident happened when the students left school and boarded a boat to their homes on the islet of Koh Shamron, a small community which is home to around 300 families, and it was midstream that the tragedy struck. Police are investigating, and there have been arrests, the police chief has announced. 3 males have been taken into custody. 2 of them are owners of the ill-fated ferry, and the ferry operator himself, who was just a 15-year-old boy.
Following up from last week's story on the ongoing fight back to stop human trafficking within Sihanoukville, the police have struck back at organised crime gangs with mass arrests this week to make their intentions very clear to those involved that forcing people into slavery will not be tolerated.
As many as 1,500 foreigners are awaiting deportation in Phra Sihanouk province, the National Committee of Counter-Trafficking has revealed. It has said it inspected over 2,700 foreigners at 10 locations in Sihanoukville, and among the 2,000 foreigners that had valid passports, 1,500 of them had no work permits. The NCCT has appealed to the public and all authorities concerned to continue to fully cooperate in its campaign against all forms of human trafficking and to crack down on illegal gambling. It has asked that people help them to build a safer city and also to enforce that these outrageous crimes will not continue to go unchecked. Phra Sihanouk provincial governor set out a number of measures to intensify the search and to identify the sites of suspected human trafficking. This trafficking that fuels forced labour, torture and prostitution. It is a very good start in turning about the tide of these gangs that have become an epidemic of violent crime in what was once a sleepy seaside town.
Cambodia continued to air its strong disapproval at Russia's annexation of 4 regions within the Crimea, taking a firm stand against the invasion of a sovereign country. They joined the majority of nations that voted against Russia at a special UN General Assembly, telling Russia their actions could only be classed as illegal.
At a UN emergency special session in New York, a spokesman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that Cambodia strongly disapproves of any kind of invasion and annexation of territories of any sovereign country. Out of the 193 members, the resolution was supported by 143 countries, while 35, including China, India, and Cambodia's neighbours Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos, abstained from voting. Meanwhile, only 4 countries voted against the legislation, and they were Syria, Nicaragua, North Korea, and Belarus. The Foreign Ministry of Thailand stated that Thailand chose to abstain because it took place during an extremely volatile and emotionally charged atmosphere, and it would damage efforts to bring a peaceful resolution to the crisis. They said, the resolution may push the world towards the brink of nuclear war and a global economic collapse. But this view is not held by the majority. When we at the Khmer Times tried to contact the Russian embassy in Cambodia for a response, they refused to comment and would give no further statement. But the message from the majority at the UN is stacked very heavily against them, and most consider their actions to be illegal.
There was 2 curious phenomenon this week. One of a new fashion in selfies that may well get you killed, and the second is of a man in Siem Reap, who in the dead of night went down to the riverside and was attacked by a crocodile, but he did not run. He fought back and he won.
The traffic police have requested that citizens who use the new Phnom Penh Sihanoukville Expressway are to refrain from stopping their vehicles on the expressway. Now, I think the clue there lays in the word express, for they are stopping on the hard shoulder to take selfies of themselves with the new road, and the police see this as a potential cause of accidents. The Deputy Director of the Traffic Police appealed to all people travelling on the expressway not to stop and take pictures on the road, as it is dangerous, and not to park in the emergency lane if they do not have an issue with their vehicle. But there is something rather sweet, that the local people are so very proud of their new road, they wish to have their photo taken with it. Our second curious incident this week occurred in Siem Reap, when a man went down to collect shrimps from the riverside, and he was attacked and bitten by a crocodile. The incident occurred at 1 a.m, and he'd gone to the river when all of a sudden a crocodile jumped out of the water and bit Mr. Chon on the leg. But Mr. Chon did not take this lightly, as he fought the 20-kilogram crocodile with a knife and killed it, before taking it back to his village, where he was treated as quite the conquering hero.
In business news this week, we see that bicycle exports are booming, earning nearly $750 million in just the first 8 months of this year. And this trend seems to be on the rise.
Exports of bicycles from Cambodia continues to set new records. Between January and September of 2022, the bicycle sector contributed $700 million. And Cambodia is the world's 5th largest exporters of bicycles and is in fact now the #1 exporter to the European Union. Before, China was the #1 exporter to the EU, followed by Taipei. But that all changed in 2020, when Cambodia became the largest exporter of bicycles to the European Union, accounting for 24% of the EU's total imports. The sales figures were a 104% increase over the same period of the previous year. And Cambodia mainly exports to the United States, the United Kingdom, Europe, and Canada. Cambodia at current has 13 bicycle factories with an investment of over $100 million. And these sort of sales figures will impress the business world and will certainly attract yet more investors into what is a winning formula.
And now it's time to look at our sports news. The T20 Cricket has turned up an incredible shock, almost as shocking as getting the correct change from a petrol pump attendant. Scotland, ranked 15th in the world, started their men's T20 World Cup campaign by beating two-time winners West Indies. Chasing 161 to win, a mixture of woeful batting and bad bowling saw the Windies bowled out for 118. And this result means the West Indies, who are 7th in the world, will need to win both of their remaining games to progress. Now, let us turn our eyes to the Premier League.
Looking at the results, we see a strange pattern forming. There's an awful lot of draws here and not a lot of goals. Arsenal got a critical goal against Leeds United. Man U are still playing atrociously and they were 0-0 against Newcastle. And we have Crystal Palace again 0-0. They really needed that win against Leicester City. But it's now to the bottom of the table we go, with all our fingers crossed, hoping that our adopted team, Notts Forest, have scored a goal. Oh dear, just like so many of my relationships, my hopes have been dashed against the rocks of despair, as yet again Notts Forest have failed to score a goal. They're sitting there propping up absolutely everybody in the table. Who else is down here? Well, we've got Crystal Palace at 13th, that's why that goal would have been so important to them, and we have some giants that, well, old giants like Southampton and Leicester City, who are just above Notts Forest. So, it's certainly an interesting place to dwell.
It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
Oh dear, we're back at it again as we look ahead, and it is just a road, or should we say a river of rain. And as we go into next week, the middle of next week, it just intensifies. Yet more thunder and more lightning, and the humidity, that's up in the 80s.
This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Saturday for your weekly roundup.